Hi readers, Miss Huber here. Today I wanted to teach you a little bit about noticing author's craft as you're reading, and hopefully you can think about it, or you might think about it for your novel response. So what I want to go over today is first I want to review authors' crafts and techniques. Then I want to review what some authors' goals are. I want to show you how this thinking might look in both a graphic novel and a prose novel. And finally, I want to give you some suggestions for some things you might try for your novel response this month. So before we get started, I want you to think about what are some of the writing techniques authors use? And I want you to maybe think about what have you learned in the past in other years about what kind of things do writers do? What have you noticed when you're reading your own books? What have you learned from Apex? And just pause right now and just take a couple minutes and just write down as many ideas as you can. So write down, write. If you don't have a pen and pencil, go get one right now and then write. So pause. All right, so if you've unpaused now, here are some writing techniques that are pretty common. I'm hoping that you have some that aren't even on here because there's definitely tons more different techniques that authors use in their writing. A lot of these we've actually already covered in your Apex chapters. They've talked about dialogue, talked about description, talked about tone, they've talked about narration and multiple points of view, that point of view. Some of you may remember that third person or even that third person limited, third person omniscient, which goes to the inner thinking, what's going on inside characters' heads. We've also had some things about metaphors, figurative language, similes, hyperboles. So we've gone over quite a number of authors' techniques just in Apex, but there's lots more too. There are a number of goals or reasons that authors try and use those techniques. Maybe they're trying to provide you with background information. Maybe they're trying to introduce some of the characters. Maybe they're trying to get you to really empathize what's going on. Build a mood, build suspense, create a theme, get you predicting. Where these happen in the story, they can happen in different places, but some of them definitely happen in different parts. You learned in Apex Chapter 1 about the exposition or the beginning, and that's often where the author introduces characters or creates the setting. By the climax, you're probably, the rising action is all about building the suspenses and raising the stakes, and the resolution generally happens at the end. So kind of you can be thinking about why did the author put these where they did in the story too, is also another interesting thinking technique. So today what I really want to teach you is that these techniques and reasons are true for graphic novels, prose novels, almost any kind of story writing that you see. Authors use these techniques and these for a variety of reasons and in a variety of ways. So I want to show you how this works today. So the graphic novel that I want to talk to you about is Zeta the Space Girl by Ben Hatke. And a little tip for reading graphic novels is you want to take in the whole page, look at everything, and then zoom in on the details. So let's take a minute and look at what's going on here. So I'm noticing it's a grassy field. There's a little barn or something in the corner. It looks like a bright kind of day. And then I'm noticing that there's two kids and she's yelling, "Finders, keepers." And she seems to be carrying a little notebook. Whoosh. So she must be running pretty fast. The leaves are kind of going with her. So she must be pretty fast. Hee hee. Oof. And he kind of is falling. All right. So there's a lot of thinking that we can actually do here, because what I want you to think about doing is about what is the creator doing, or the author and the illustrator, right? Because we have an illustrator that's really doing stuff too. And then ask how or why do they do that? So now would be another good time to just pause for a minute and think back at those techniques. What are some techniques that you're seeing in here? Why or how do those work? All right, pause, maybe 5 seconds, and then come back when you're ready. All right. So you may have noticed a lot of other things, but these are some of the things that I noticed. One of the things that I noticed the author was trying to do, one of their goals, was to create a setting. And how did they do this? Well, they used description. In this case, it wasn't word descriptions, it was pictures and color description. And I'm noticing, like, in the pictures, the colors, we have a sunny day, bright green grass. It feels kind of calm and peaceful. And then we also get over here to these characters, and this is kind of a different feeling. And so I think the author in this part is trying to introduce the characters. And they're doing it by revealing some actions. Like, I'm hoping she's smiling, but I'm wondering, is she a bully and kind of taking advantage of this boy? They also have some dialogue, and you notice she's like, hee hee, and he's like, oof, right? So maybe he's kind of clumsy. Maybe he gets bullied a lot. And then I also notice this is done in third person narrator because I'm seeing outside those characters, right? And I'm seeing like everything they're saying. I'm not really seeing what they're thinking right now or inside a character. All right. And so I'm thinking to myself, like, is this girl like mean? Does this boy usually get bullied? Or are they just joking around? Because this is kind of like a peaceful, fun kind of setting. All right. So I'm going to go on to the next page. Oh, sorry. Not going to go on to the next page yet. I have some other important thinking that I was doing. So that kind of goes to this tone of like, it's fun, playful, maybe there's some bullying going on, but I'm going to kind of read a little bit more to find that out. And then I'm also noticing that there's a gigantic hole in the middle of the page, right? And I'm wondering, why is there a gigantic hole in the middle of the page? And so I'm wondering if the author is doing that to create some suspense, like make me wonder, like, what's going on here? It might be important. All right. And how is the author doing that? So what is the author doing? He's creating suspense. How is he doing that? Well, he's creating the setting with this big hole, and he's adding some description, right? The details of this different color and things like that. All right, so page 2. And again, take in the whole page, noticing that there's definitely more action going on here. And then I'm going to zoom in and read through it. So we have the boy grabbing my notebook out of my hands. Isn't finders keepers. Zita? I notice she grabs the notebook. Whoosh. She kind of drops it. This wasn't here yesterday. And they're at that big hole, and it's smoking, and the pages are flying off. It looks like a meteoroid. Oh, and their faces kind of are like, what? What's going on? I thought that kind of thing always burned up in the atmosphere. The dinosaurs thought that too. It looks like there's something poking out of it. Help me down. Shouldn't we report this? And he's kind of like pulling on her. Don't go, don't go. I don't know. He's kind of helping, but he's kind of not too. Report it to who? The science squad. And I notice he's kind of staying back, laying down, and then she's like, pick something up. And she goes, whoa. All right. So we've looked at the whole page. And now we want to think, what is the creator doing here? And then ask how or why. And I was really interested from before about this whole building suspense, because I feel like something is going to happen. And I kind of want to keep reading the pages so I can feel what's going on. And so I'm going to ask myself, how is the author doing this, or why is the author doing this? Okay, so he's building some suspense. And how is he doing it? Well, he has this dialogue. Zita has the question, right? I'm not sure. Shouldn't we report this? Maybe this isn't okay. And Zita's like, yep, it's good. Let's go. Okay. He's also has a lot more setting in here, but he didn't just create the setting. We've seen the setting before. He did like create more of it, but he's really changing the setting a little bit. It looks like we have some wind picking up. We see something a little more ominous. Something maybe is happening. And he did this by adding more description, right? And in this case, he's adding details, like the little details of their hair flying and their faces and all those little details. Even if he didn't do it in words, he did it in details in his pictures. And then I feel like he's really zooming in on what's important. And he does this in a number of ways. Like, he starts out with like this bigger zoom in of this hole. But then we get way down into the bottom of the hole. So there's something is going on with this hole. And then she zooms in on the thing in this hole. So he's zooming in, he's adding like a whole bunch of panels about what is in this hole. So something's going on with this hole. And this is creating this tone that I'm kind of like, what's going to happen? He's building the suspense. It's a little like, it's still this bright sunny day. So maybe but like they're a little bit more nervous. At least the boy is a lot more nervous. And they're still using this third person narrator. So I can see what all the characters are doing. But he's also using facial expressions. And that wasn't one of those author's techniques that was in originally, but this is one that I noticed. I noticed like he draws like up here, he doesn't even draw the face on the boy, right? The boy is like so far away, but here she's like happy. Here she looks a little bit more curious. So he draws in some of those facial expressions. And I also know he's using body language. Like she drops the notebook, right? That's some body language. Like I'm like, oh, this is important. I'm dropping it. And then he's also like, kind of the boy is trying, kind of helping her, but he doesn't really seem like he's helping her. He's more like, stay off, don't go down. So I think those are also things that he does. So as I keep reading this, I might keep looking at like, does the author keep doing these things? How does he do them? Why is this important? So what we did was we looked at specifically how did the creator build suspense? And Ben Hatke built suspense by using this third person narrator, by changing the setting, zooming in on what's important, adding description using in pictures, right? And create this tone. They had specific facial expressions and body language that the characters were really using. So what I want you to know is that all of these things can also work in a book, in a prose book, because a graphic novel is also a book. So both of them can use both places. So I'm going to read you part of this book called Hoot, which if you haven't read it, it's about a boy named Roy who is trying to save these endangered species, these owls, from a developer who is trying to take away their habitat. So as we're reading this, what I want you to be thinking about is how does the creator, Carl Hiaasen in Hoot, maybe use some of these techniques that Ben Hatke used in his work, and maybe he uses some other things to build suspense in his work. So I'm going to read this to you. And as I'm reading, I want you to be thinking, I just want you to sit back first, and I just want you to just listen to the story. Maybe you're thinking about, how is this author creating suspense? Do I notice any of these same techniques? So Roy would not have noticed the strange boy if it weren't for Dana Matherson, because Roy ordinarily didn't look out of the window of the school bus. He preferred to read comics and mystery books on the morning ride to Trace Middle. But on this day, a Monday, Roy would never forget. Dana Matherson grabbed Roy's head from behind and pressed his thumbs into Roy's temple as if he were squeezing a soccer ball. The older kids were supposed to stay in the back of the bus, but Dana had snuck up behind Roy's seat and ambushed him. When Roy tried to wriggle free, Dana mushed his face against the window. It was then, squinting through the smudged glass, that Roy spotted the strange boy running along the sidewalk. It appeared as if he was hurrying to catch the school bus, which was stopped at a corner to pick up some more kids. The boy was straw blonde and wiry, and his skin was nut brown from the sun. The expression on his face was intent and serious. He wore a faded Miami Heat basketball jersey and dirty khaki shorts. And here was the odd part. No shoes. The soles of his bare feet looked as black as barbecue coals. All right. So readers, what I want you to do, I want you to think about, how does Carl Hiaasen build suspense even on page 1? Does he use those same techniques that Ben Hatke did, or does he use some different techniques, and which ones? So go ahead and pause this video. If you need to rewind to see what some of the other techniques are, you can do that. Otherwise, pause, and when you're ready to go on, push play again. I'll see you in a minute. All right, readers. So I'm hoping that you have a lot of ideas on your page for how the author, Carl Hiaasen, built suspense in this even on page 1. Here's my thinking. And so you can kind of maybe see how our thinking compares. Well, he also used a third person narrator because we are outside. We see Roy, we see Dana. We don't see, like, it's not using an I, it's using people's names. And it's a limited perspective because I do see inside Roy's head, right? And I don't see inside Dana's head. So he also uses changes in the settings. And he changes the settings, like, even though this is a school bus, he tells us in words, just like Zeta said, like, this wasn't here yesterday. Carl Hyacin tells us, like, this is what people are supposed to do, and this is what I did. This is what happened. So right here, he says he usually is like looking at his books, but today he's looking out at the window, right? So we already have a change in what's normally the setting. And then he also has, like, Dana had snuck, or the older kids were supposed to stay in the back of the bus. And so we see here, like, something is different in this setting today. So maybe that's a clue, like something's going on, something is different. He uses, like, this description, and we're talking about figurative language. So I could put in that figurative language card if I wanted to, but he grabbed Roy's head from behind and pressed his thumbs into Roy's temple as if he were squeezing a soccer ball, right? He's not, squeezing a soccer ball is like a metaphor for Roy's head. All right. He also is using body language. Like, Roy's trying to wriggle free here, right? He does not like this. This is not good. He is not playing, right? This is not something that he's, like, joking around with Dana about. And then he actually uses words to talk about facial expressions. He has squinting through the smudged glass, so we're, like, seeing what his face looks like, right? And then Carl Hyacin also is zooming in on what might be important. Like, think about it here. We don't know what Roy looks like. We don't know what Dana looks like. We just know that Dana's mean. But then Carl Hyacin zooms in on this boy running, and we know exactly what this boy looks like. He is straw blonde, super blonde. He's tall and skinny. His tan. His face is intent and serious. We know what he wears. We know what he doesn't wear. And so he zooms in, and this might be a hint too. Like, this boy is going to be important. And this kind of creates this tone of, like, curiosity a little bit. It's building some suspense. Who is this boy? Why is this boy important? Why do we need to know about this boy? And we also have this tone, like, Roy's world right now is not where he wants to be. So we want to see him, like, maybe move into a better place. All right. So what I'm hoping you're seeing is that both Carl Hyacin and Ben Hatke used a lot of the similar techniques in both a graphic novel and a prose novel, and to build this suspense and kind of keep us reading. But, like, they use them in slightly different ways. So for your novel response, here are some ideas of what you might try. You might try using the goals and reasons cards, or your own thinking about a writer's or creator's goal, and to think about the different parts of the book. Like, what is the author trying to do here? Why is he doing it? And then you could also try using and noticing the techniques the authors or creators are using, and think about, why is the author doing that? What is the effect of that technique? Are they using inner thinking? Do they do that a lot? Why? Are they using multiple plot lines? And finally, what you could try, you could think about how a prose and a graphic novel use similar techniques. Just like we did with Zeta and Carl and Hoot. You could also do 2 graphic novels. You could do 2 prose novels, just 2 different books, and how they use similar or different techniques and what their reasons are. All right, happy reading. I'm hoping to see your thinking again, and I will please stop by and ask any questions, and I'll talk to you soon. Bye.